today's episode, we chat with Llewellyn Cox, who is BioBuilt's CEO and founder. BioBuilt is LA's accelerator for biotechnology with a special focus on game-changing ideas for biomanufacturing the products of tomorrow. To begin, can you share a bit about your background in terms of where you grew up and how you became interested in science?
I grew up in the UK. I'm originally from the southeast of England. I frankly was just always into science. I grew up watching, there's a lot of documentaries on the BBC that are very aimed at children. Education, science is very important where I grew up. And I always had, a taste for it. I really enjoyed it. And I frankly chose my undergraduate major because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but biology was my favorite subject. So I literally just went into biology not knowing what to do. But when I was at university in Sheffield, I started to discover, a real passion for original research. I love doing like research projects where you were doing stuff that was, really actually original for the first time. And that really kind of lit a spark in me. So I ended up moving on to Cardiff to do a PhD. That was a really cool experience. We discovered a pretty major process in how eggs are awakened by sperm when they fuse together. So that was really cool, and it's actually led to some really cool medical innovations. So after that, I was really on the research track. I moved to New York to Cornell Medical School to do postdoctoral work. I was studying developmental neuroscience. But after 6 years of postdoc research, I was a little bit burned out. I was a little bit disillusioned, frankly, with the academic treadmill. So I took a different direction. I started getting into more of the business side of science. I moved to Los Angeles from New York. I worked actually briefly for a couple of years, each at City of Hope and USC, doing administrative work and actually designing labs or buying the equipment to put into labs. And so that kind of educated me into a whole side of the industry I didn't really know before. In the meantime, I was starting a couple of little companies on my own and discovering there were some really big challenges in the Los Angeles area in terms of getting the support you need to move a bioscience startup forward. That led to the formation of Lab Launch, which is a network of affordable lab spaces. It's a nonprofit. And then about a year ago, or a year and a half now, I actually handed off the reins of Lab Launch to a new CEO, Marie, and I've now moved on to BioBuilt, which is what I'm doing today.
And that's a good segue into the topic of BioBuilt. But what do you now that you've passed the 1 year mark, what does that company offer and what impact do you see going forward?
Sure. So BioBuilt is kind of a unique company. We started off, in its inception with a vision of what you might consider a traditional accelerator model, something like an indie bio for LA, where we'd raise a fund and we'd invest in some companies and bring them into a class and have kind of a program. So we spent an awful lot of time talking to everybody we could think of who was in the world of capital, whether they invest in biotech or not, and asked them what they were interested in, what they thought was cool, what big opportunities are up, why they invest in biotech, why they don't invest in biotech more especially. And so what we learned was very, very interesting. We got a lot of perspectives, but there were some really common themes. And one of them was that despite the kind of idea that people invest in funds and they have just a very broad outlook and they want to just invest in anything cool, that's not really the case in real life. People tend to be very interested in particular verticals that either they're very expert in or they're just really, really passionate about. And so to have one kind of broad program that tried to cover all of these people's interests is really a non-starter because they're just not interested. So what we've actually ended up kind of pivoting to is a very interesting and unique model where we've actually teamed up directly with investors who have certain interests, and we're essentially running acceleration as a service. So we're creating a bridge between VCs who want to invest in companies in a certain area, but maybe don't have the very deep scientific expertise to really vet and understand those companies. We can bring the deals to them, we can help them vet the ones they find, and then once they invest in those companies, we put them in a space, a lab space, and we provide them with mentoring and management assistance as they get up and running so that we can de-risk that actual company. So it's a really cool model. We really enjoy it. We work very closely with both investors and startups. And it's kind of going well right now.
As you were describing, the services that you provide on the acceleration, I wanted to ask who or which people have served as your mentors through this process. I know our students have their mentors through the faculty here at KGI, but wanted to pick your brain and see if there's been someone or something instrumental to your success so far.
That's actually a really good question because I think this is one of the perceptions of the LA area that has historically been an issue. If you talk to certainly old school pharma people, why is LA not a biotech hub? Even though it is, they will tell you there's not this. If you look at a city like San Diego, there is what you might call a multi-generational group of entrepreneurs. There's a group of folks who started companies back in the 1980s who exited and got rich and invested in the next generation, and so on and so on. And so you've got kind of this stable of industry experts to provide people with mentorship and advice as they get up and running. And the perception is that LA historically has not had that. It's not entirely untrue. But what we've kind of discovered, and I think one of the key things that we did early on with Lab Launch was to really reach out beyond what you think of as the biotech industry. In building Lab Launch, even though it's a nonprofit network of labs, of shared spaces, we work for science, we're really a real estate company. We're a management company. And so the expertise to actually help Lab Launch get up and running isn't necessarily from biotech folks. It's really from folks who really understand how to operate in the commercial real estate market, how to deal with permitting and licensing and contractors and all that wonderful stuff. So we've been very lucky. One of our board members and actually our landlord of our first location in Monrovia is a guy called Blaine Feder. He's been incredibly supportive of me in Lab Launch. That's one person that I think has been very instrumental in helping us understand how to be successful in this space. But then broadly, there's a number, there's a real community across Los Angeles of folks who individually are working on their own angle of helping support the bioscience industry. So people like Dina Lazovsky at Biocom, is a tireless worker to really promote and start to network together the industry. But other than mentors, I take a lot of inspiration from a lot of the people I work with, many of whom are my age or even younger. Folks like the Biotech Connection LA group, who are a student, postdoc, young professional-led group who organizes events and programs to bring together industry and academics, to help young scientists and entrepreneurs understand how the world outside of academia works. I take a lot of inspiration from those folks because at the end of the day, we're looking to the future. We're making it up as we go along. So while it's great to have advice from folks who've, been through the storm and understand how to deal with some of certainly the technical issues, it's just as equally important to have people who have energy and vision. And that's a lot of what, drives me day to day.
Switching gears to KGI, how did you first learn about KGI? And for those that can't attend today's presentation that you're giving, if you would be able to share a few highlights, takeaways for our listeners.
That's a really hard question. I'm trying to think. I have no idea when I first heard about KGI. It's been so long now. For a long time, certainly since we started Lab Launch out in the San Gabriel Valley back in 2015, 14. KGI has been one of the local institutions we wanted to reach out to and work with, but I can't remember if we met you or you met us because it was a really easy relationship to forge. I met President Schuster years ago. He's always been a wonderful partner, someone who's got a real vision for the future of the workforce of biotech itself. He's been a great leader here, and I've always been happy to come to campus and do events and panels and all kinds of stuff, to just, share what I've kind of learned over the years with the students here. I've also worked a fair bit with Steve Casper, who's actually a board member of Lab Launch. He has, again, been someone who, maybe behind the scenes a little bit, has really been driving a lot of the way people in the modern age look at entrepreneurship in the biosciences. It's amazing how many people I meet from other cities around the world who know of Steve Casper. So, we've been happy to work with him, and at Lab Launch, we've had his class do some research projects, and they've been really high quality. We've taken, both Lab Launch and BioBuilt have taken in interns from the summer program to work with us and do some really cool work. So for us, it's been a very symbiotic relationship. We've benefited from some really great work from some, enthusiastic, bright, smart KGI students. And we're always happy, to come out here and give back, because it's such a good community, and we're just proud to be a partner.
As we wind down, kind of to piggyback on that last question, but in terms of your presentation, what advice would you give to a KGI student who is looking to become an entrepreneur, whether it's in applied life sciences, healthcare, or whatever industry they want to jump into?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's hard to kind of boil down, like, what do you need to know? It's like everything. But I think one of the take-homes from at least the way I like to talk about entrepreneurship as a subject is that it's a journey. It's a real marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a Hollywood movie where you have a great idea and 6 months later someone funds you and suddenly you're a billionaire. 95% of the time it's failing, and it's failing again. And frankly, this is why I think scientists make good entrepreneurs, because that's what science is. It's trying stuff out, it not working, you iterate until you find a solution that does work. That is frankly starting a company. And it's a long process. It's a journey. And just like any journey, you need to be prepared for it. You need to find friends to come along with you. You need to stay on the good road, not the bad road. And there's no shortcuts to glory.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and we can't wait to hear your presentation, and I'm sure we'll cross paths many times as the connection between BioBuilt and KGI continues to strengthen.